Okay, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And in this year we continue to talking about lobbying and lobbying tips, not only in Washington DC, in the capital of lobbying practices, but also all over the world. And as you know, I work in the sphere of political consulting, and I can talk to you that many practices of communication which we use in political campaigning, in elections, are similar also in advocacy campaign and in lobbying campaign. So what is lobbying all over the world? Yeah, in some countries you can see lobbying law. In some country you can see only practices which mean lobbying or advocacy or public affairs or government affairs. In every country we have not the same tradition about naming of this process, but what is the name of this process? And in Ukraine, for example, it's called also lobbying. In Europe, for example, Europeans not good understand lobbying term, so that's why they use public advocacy or public affairs to illustrate all process which connect with influence to elected government officials, to members of European Parliament, to European Commission, and so on and so forth. And of course in US lobbying called lobbying, and if you work with lobbying as a United States citizen or United States company, you must register your company or yourself as lobbyist or lobbying company. And if you work, for example, from Kenya or from Lithuania or from Russia or from Ukraine, you must register your lobbying activity as a foreign agent's activity in United States. And this website called Far Yester, yeah, so it's a website for people who do foreign activity in United States. This practice is usual for United States because you can't invest to election campaigning, to political forces when you are foreign agents, and it's understandable from the period of Cold War these practices are stable. So what tip you must know in every advocacy, in every lobbying campaign, whatever you work in these practices? So firstly, you must do very deep analysis about your issue. So if you work, for example, with farmers, yeah, and you wanted to do some tax cuts for milk farming, you must do policy analysis about situation in milk farming in your laws, yeah, and also analysis about market, about dynamics in economy, about workers who work in this sphere, about social aspects of your sphere and your work, and so on and so forth. So in big practices and big cases, you also can write green policy book, white policy book, if you work with all industry, yeah, for example, all industry of farming or agriculture in your country. So first it's analysis, big analysis or small analysis, but you must understand really situation in this sphere and all aspects, and also you must understand who is decision making persons in in your question, in your issue, in your aspect. So it can be parliament in your country, it can be government in your country, it can be other government officials, for example some departments in for example agriculture ministry who works with agriculture, and so on and so forth. Also it can be decision-making persons who work in local councils, so it's also can be, for example, if you work in Germany or you work in other federations, for example in Russia or in United States, you also can work with issue, for example, of tax cuts with local government or with city council.
So the second aspect it's your arguments, because your arguments must be also clear and understandable for all decision-making persons, for all decision makers. So you must do analytics also for decision makers, and you must do analytics for your public communication, and you must take all your documents with you for the meeting with decision making persons. It can be presentation, it can be infographics, it can be big analysis, for example, as I mentioned, green policy book and white policy book. So it can be different packages of your work, of your paperwork. For example, it also can be petitions from the people who are for your issues, and so on and so forth. Third tip, it's also people who are in your campaign, who are leaders, opinion leaders, who are for your position. For example, if you're talking about agriculture policy, you must invite to this meeting with government officials some persons who work in profile organization, for example in agriculture union or in other place which connect with agriculture, because of course you as lobbyists and for government officials understand that you are for some position and it's your work to be for this position. So the next tip, it's communication. It's communication about your issue, it's communication about your work. So of course media support can be a big bonus to your communication with public official, and it's very important to work with media when you work with elected officials who oriented their campaigning and their work to voters also. So it's you have two methods of working with media. As we know, it's PR work and also work with advertising, when you pay for advertising, for PR and media, but it's not right work in my point of view. The right work, it's communicate with chief editors, to write good articles, good analytics, to give good experts on your issue to media, to do special projects with media about your issue, and to communicate organically about your position. Of course, you can talk to me then when you work with tobacco lobbying, with lobbying which connect with not popular things. You can do such a wonderful campaign as we can do, for example, in the sphere of farming, of agriculture, or in ecological issue, in the issues of green energy, and so on. So of course, yeah, sure. But if you work in advocacy, in you work with public aspects, if you communicate really good things, you must build your negotiations with media. And one more tip, why important to communicate in lobbying network, in advocacy network. Of course, strategies of lobbying is the same for the long period, but tactics of communication, it's different in different countries, and in my opinion, you must know every new practices, every new platforms, every new communication tips to do your campaign more effective, cheaper, and of course interesting for government officials, and also for your clients or your partners or your organization. That's why you can take a part in some profile network. You can read articles about new tips in advocacy. You can read all cases who are win prizes in advocacy and communications. You can take part in conferences. It can be more expensive international conferences, but it can be conferences for free in universities, and also you can communicate with top professionals in this sphere. I guarantee you that mostly professionals interested in communication, and they have also scholarship programs in their offices. They have social projects, they have educational projects. For example, we have such type of projects in our company SIG Internationals, but it's very important to understand trends every day. It's very important to read news in this sphere. It's very important to start to use digital platforms in new digital work, and it's very important to understand what work, for example, in Africa, and what can work in Bulgaria, in Lithuania, in US, in Latin America. What can I take? What tips can I take from these practices? And if you have question about some practices, for example, petition work, or for example practices of making good websites to fundraise money for your campaign, you can write to different people in LinkedIn, to different people via their website, via their Facebook, and communicate to do our work more professional, more interesting, and better for democracy development all over the world. So thank you for your attention, and we will do such type of sessions to answer for your questions which you send to our website, and also which you ask on our educational platforms and educational sessions. Thank you, and Merry Christmas one more time.